Mic check 1 2, mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Welcome in for another round of the TRC Posh British GT3 series. Tonight we are doing a 50-minute sprint, I believe, at Silverstone. No stop required, but the stop may be on the books depending on the tire wear and fuel loads that the drivers decide to go with. And here with a bit longer of a straight than we have had throughout the season, we will get to hear these V12 Astons and the W12 Bentleys and the V8 Jags sing their songs as Fernandez and the Aston Martin will be the first to set a time of 2:04.402, but I can assure you we will see those times drop down. Slight bit of scrub of the front wheels coming through Maggots and Beckett's there for Fernandez. And just a calm practice session. 18 drivers on the grid so far. I believe that is all that we are expecting for tonight. But here at Silverstone, the first of our endurance races throughout this season. I believe it is a 7-week season, and this is going to be our first endurance event. Yes, we will have a 15-minute qualifying session followed by a 50-minute race. There is no pit stop requirement throughout that race, and I think the strategy is going to be just load it up with fuel for the duration and have enough tires left in it at the end. Labe goes fastest by quite a large margin, almost 4 seconds, 2:475 for Labe. Through Vale and coming through Club Corner down the Hamilton Straight. Labe will let this Aston Martin V12 sing. Let's actually go on board. Get a little bit of that V12 goodness. Traction control doing a lot of work here in the V12 Aston. Labe very, very proficient in this Aston Martin. Currently leading the Holy Grail Rookie Series, or the Holy Grail Rookie Championship, by quite a large margin, and is not one to be ruled out in favor of the win for tonight's race. As long as everything stays his way, luck-wise and strategy-wise, we should very likely see Labe at the front, if not on the podium. Fernandez P2, Craters P3, Karim currently P4. Wagner and Mikey, two other drivers to really look out for. I don't believe we have Elizondo with us tonight, but if we had Elizondo, definitely would be another driver to look out for. Labe at 1:59.560, quickly into the sub 2-minute mark. It is only free practice, but at the same time, the track is only green. These are lap times some would expect to run in optimum conditions, and running these lap times with a track that has not completely reached its maximum operating condition. That is actually a very impressive lap from Labe. Just needs to make sure that he can repeat these results in qualifying here in about 6 minutes' time. A few more to look out for. Wagner in the number 99 Bentley. Now down the Wellington Straight. And Wagner in the Bentley. One of the top competitors to Labe, should the Bentley have enough pace in it. We'll see what Wagner will be able to bring once he starts a few flying laps. That previous lap invalid. So it will take a minute before we get an eye for the pace that Wagner will be able to bring. As of right now, Labe clear of the field almost completely with that 4-second margin, a 3.8-second margin to Merkel now in P2. A few more drivers that have a very good chance of being a disruptor there. Mikey, who I believe is not with us tonight, or at least has not joined in yet, would be another one of those drivers to watch. I think Wagner going a bit wide at the exit of Stowe down into Vale. Keeps it much more nice and tidy. I don't know if this lap will be valid, but we'll continue to push and he'll see if he can find any time. Merkel found a bit more time. Young up to P3. Merkel staying in P2. Labe still on top with that 1:59.560. As of right now, it's looking to be a slaughter for Labe if he can translate this result to qualifying, and as of right now, it doesn't seem to be he is having any issues in doing so. As long as Labe can get it out front and keep it clean with no mistakes, it should not be too much of an issue for Labe to hold on to the lead in this race. Mansueto jumping up into P2, knocking Fernandez down a spot, who had actually knocked Merkel down to P4. So the lap times are beginning to come down. Just about 3.5 minutes left in free practice before we get started with our official qualifying session. Wagner, one of those contenders, should he be able to find enough time. He's actually running just behind the 6:16 Aston Martin of Veldkamp. But Wagner now got that margin down to 2 seconds, and it is only free practice, and the track has not entirely warmed up yet either. We should see those optimum conditions in the qualifying session. I don't believe there are any rain chances, but you can never completely rule them out, especially with a British-based series such as this one. Weather has been introduced as a factor, but I believe it should be 0% chance of rain in the race. We will have a bit of cloud cover, though, which could cause some changes in the track temperature, but ultimately should not affect the handling of the cars all too much. Labe now behind the 888 Jaguar of Hunt. Labe again very, very quick in the old school Aston Martin. And talking to him post-race at the previous round at Oulton Park, Labe said that this is the only car that he drives, and if there is ever a series where he feels he can win a championship, it is going to be this one, where it is based on a few of the older cars. So Labe, an absolute master with the Aston Martin. We'll see throughout the rest of the season if he can rack up the points, have enough consistent finishes to bring home the championship in the end. And as of right now, he at least has the speed to do so. Mansueto up into P2. Labe did not find any improvement on that lap, even sitting in some slipstream, so it may have had a couple disruptions earlier on. But Mansueto in the Jaguar up into P2, knocking Wagner down as he has bested his time by about 0.2 of a second. For the majority of the field, this will be the last free practice lap of the session. The 9:15 of Horner will have enough time. Horner in the Bentley will go for one more lap. We'll see if he finds any improvement. Goes 7th fastest so far. Is going for another lap to try and improve, though. The 67 of Harris. The Jaguar will be one of our first drivers to finish this session. I think that may have been invalid there, so we'll see if this ends up being a practice pit stop or if he runs it out to the line. It may be valid. It just looked like he may have invalidated at the entrance to Brooklands there. Across the line, 9th fastest for Harris. Bahena still yet to put a time on the board, and the late arrival of Elizondo in the Aston Martin. Again, should there be any driver in this series to rival the speed that Labe has, it will be Elizondo in the number 15. Wagner across the line in the Bentley will try and find some more improvement across the line. He does find some improvement within 1.5 seconds of Labe, and the 6:16 of Veldkamp goes P9, knocks Harris down to P10. The 9:15 of Horner just coming into the arena. And thank you, Whatever Fool, for the raid. We are just about to get started with qualifying for the TRC Posh British GT3 Series. Round 3, 50-minute race here at Silverstone. We will get ready to get started with free practice. Welcome in, everybody. Horner is going to be one of our last drivers to cross the line. Bahena in the 18 will also come across, but I think the session will move us over into qualifying before Bahena makes it around. So we'll stay on board with Horner. Just coming around the final corner onto the old pit straight and across the line. That will transition us over to qualifying. Who is going to be the first one out? It does seem to be one of the Aston Martins. That is the Aston Martin of Karim, who will be first out of the pit lane. I believe also has the Aston Martin of Fernandez immediately behind. And then the number 99 Bentley of Wagner as Karim bows out. Does let two of the quicker drivers go on ahead without interruption. And I believe the 99 of Wagner also dove back into the pit lane. So it will be Fernandez to set the pace for the field. Here at the start of this qualifying session. 15 minutes qualifying before our 50-minute race. And again, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Whatever Fool, again for the raid. And I hope you all stick around for qualifying and a little bit later on into the race. Down the hanger straight goes Fernandez as the 111 of Karim has gone around at Village. Down into Brooklands before you bring it around for Luffield. This is going to be the end to Fernandez's out lap, and we'll get started with his first flying lap of the session. Out of Woodcott and across the line into Copse. See what Fernandez is able to bring. Very, very easy to push here at Silverstone. The track limits are a bit generous, but it's also very easy to push just past those track limits. If you're going to be on pole tonight, you are going to have to find that very fine balance between in and out of the limitations of the track. Down the hanger straight. Into Stowe goes Fernandez, and also has the 67 Jaguar of Harris in tow. Out of Stowe into Vale for Fernandez, and clean air up ahead. The 289 of Ewer, the next car up ahead, but a bit of an overcook into Vale. That will take a lot of time out of the lap and will throw away the advantage that Fernandez may have had being out and alone, at least for this lap. He does have a bit of margin both ahead and behind. Does not have any sort of disruption. But I don't think it's going to be the fastest lap for Fernandez. It will be the first complete lap as long as he stays valid throughout Sector 3. So Fernandez will at least be able to set the bar for the field. Out of Aintree and onto the Wellington straight. Down into Brooklands. Very tricky corner to try and carry as much speed as possible. Awkward sort of double apex. You can go for a very, very late apex. And then Luffield just try and rotate the car as best as possible and punch it when the nose is pointed the right direction. Now through Woodcott, the final corner before you come on the old pit straight. Fernandez is fastest with a 203.657, but that is not going to be enough to hold. Mansueto went fastest for just a moment, but Labbe goes fastest to 59.745 is now the time to beat. And Mansueto knocked down to P2, Hunt in P3. It's an Aston Martin on top with two Jags taking up the other spots behind, but it is 2 Aston Martins and 2 Jags in the front 2 rows for the time being. I would expect a Bentley to make it up there. We'll actually hop on with the number 99 of Wagner. 79 of Eddie goes P9. 23 of Young invalid on that lap. Wagner goes 4th fastest. And right now, only about 0.2 of a second between P2 and P4. Definitely tight running for that second spot on the front row. We'll see if anyone will be able to be the disruptor against Labe. Also have DeHaro back with us, and Wagner carrying a lot of speed. You can see Bentley sliding. Who has he pulled up to? I believe that is possibly the 43 of DeHaro. And actually, no, that is the 16 of Fuzzy Vasconcelos. And I think Wagner may have been squeezed a bit there. May not be the happiest about it. Ultimately, no contact, and Fuzzy Vasconcelos was at least trying to yield. Elizondo in the Aston, and second fastest, 1.1 seconds the margin between himself and Labe, and it is now an all Aston Martin front row, but we'll see if Elizondo has the pace to rival the time of Labe. He needs to find a good bit of margin and maybe a bit of slipstream help as well. A lot of rotation with the Aston Martin. You can see the suspension actually getting a lot of play as well. I wonder if Elizondo is flat out on this lap, or if maybe he is trying to build a bit of a margin to the cars up ahead. It doesn't seem that he is pushing all too hard. I think he may have opened up the gap to the car ahead just a little bit. Hunt into P3, or still is P3, Mansueto P4, Wagner P5. And Wagner the furthest ahead in the Bentley, up in P5. The next Bentley in line down at P14. But Horner jumps up into P8 for the Bentley. Just about halfway through this qualifying session, and still plenty of time to find improvement. Hunt in the Jag has almost beaten the time of Elizondo and almost knocked Elizondo down to P2, or down to P3. Elizondo trying to find whatever time he can. I think this may be a burner lap to go for a faster lap at the end of this one. Getting a lot of rotation, and early on the power, I think Elizondo is going to give it his all on this next lap. I don't think this lap will be any sort of improvement, and no, it is not. So Elizondo going for a flyer to challenge the pole, getting a lot of the grass on the inside. I spoke earlier about being able to push the track limits here at Silverstone. If you know the margins, it is very, very easy to find that little bit of overstep that you need. Little expansion of the track is, well, in some sections of the track limits and lines may be a bit of a suggestion, but Elizondo is pushing. We'll see if he has enough time to contend against Labe. Labe still the only driver in the sub 2 minute range, and Elizondo is closing very, very quickly to the 913 Jag up ahead of Craters. We'll see if Craters lets Elizondo go. I'm sure they're talking to each other right now. Getting very wide, carrying a lot of speed. 1,000th of a second faster is Wagner, knocking Elizondo down into P3. But I think Elizondo may have a bit more than 1,000th of a second in his pocket at the end of this lap coming into the arena. How is it looking through Village, through the loop and then through Aintree before you get back onto the Wellington straight, trying to carry as much speed as possible, keep the car pointed as straight as possible, and on the throttle as much as possible. Now down into Brooklands. This is where it can all come apart. Late apex onto the green, painted tarmac on the inside, and then a late apex again to carry as much speed through Luffield as possible, floated out to the outside, and then back to the inside for Woodcott across the line. What will it be? It's not enough for pole. He found a couple tenths, got second place back, but it is not enough to challenge the Aston Martin of Labe. Elizondo is not far behind. Hunt goes second fastest in the Jag. And I think that's all Hunt has in it, at least for the time being. Has knocked Elizondo down to P3, and an absolutely exceptional lap from the Jag. Jaguar, I believe, has not won a race this season, but it is not off the books, and I would absolutely love to see it. Bentley has won, Aston Martin has won, Jaguar has not. I do think we have had Jaguar on the podium, but I don't think we have had Jaguar on the top step of that podium. A couple drivers still yet to put a qualifying lap in. Karim in the number 111 Aston Martin across the line does get a lap in, stays P19, and Miller in the Bentley, another driver yet to set a valid lap. The 915 of Horner across the line stays P13. And it is right around 2 more laps time. If you are just now coming across the line, you get 2 more laps. If you're on a lap, you should get 2 more laps. Right around 2 minutes flat per lap. Depending on the driver, a little bit over, or if you're Labe, you're a little bit under. Labe still our only driver on the grid to be in the sub 2 minute range. Labe may have almost been impeded by the 18 of Bahana there. Ultimately was not. Now it is getting to crunch time. Elizondo, who will be on this lap and will have 1 more flying lap. And then Wagner, who will be starting his final flying lap. We'll see if Wagner has any time in this lap. And the times are coming down. The clouds do seem to be rolling in a bit. Track may be cooling. Across the line for Wagner, not any improvement, so he has 1 more time to try and find any bit of time that he may have left in that car, and is not going to abandon the lap. And Wagner will stay P4, will not be able to improve. Elizondo through Abbey and into Village. He will have 1 more lap to try and improve. The 22 of Fernandez across the line. P7 stays P7. Will have 1 more lap. Horner currently P14. Will try and improve. The 119 of Labe. He will try to find more time. Does find a 10th. Makes it harder for Hunt or Elizondo. Hunt will not be able to improve. Stays P2. And will not be able to do any better. The 15 of Elizondo will have 1 more flying lap. We'll see if he found any more time on this lap. And he did, back up into P2, 6 tenths left to go, but is not going to get it. Says P2 on the front row is good enough for me. 23 of Fuzzy Vasconcelos across the line. We'll have one more opportunity. Stays P18. This group coming through just across the line. Fuzzy will not improve on this lap, though. The 6:16 of Veldkamp will have another lap to go for some improvement. The 2:23 of Young and the Bentley there, I believe that is the 47 Bentley of Miller, will also be able to try and improve. The 9:15 of Horner on his final flying lap. The majority of the field has come in to the pit lane. Horner will try and see whatever improvement he can get through Brooklands and Luffield. Around and eventually to Woodcut. Across the line for Horner, what will it be? It's good enough for P10, the 1:19 of Labade. He's got the pole secure, does find a bit more time, and that's just kind of slap you in the face time. The 47 of Miller will be the next across the line with the 2:23 Aston Martin of Young in tow. We'll see if either of these two drivers improve on their laps. If they are still out there, I believe that means that they have improved. Just need to bring the lap home. Miller with the Aston Martin of Young in tow behind. Young getting a bit of slipstream help. Down into Brooklands. A bit of a slide for the Bentley. It does have a lot of weight to get slowed down and pulled through the corners. Out of Luffield and through Woodcut across the line for Miller. What will it be? Stays P16 and Young P12. Well, it is Labe on pole with Elizondo P2, Hunt P3, Wagner P4, Mansueto P5, Jennings P6, Fernandez P7, Harris P8, Craters P9, Horner P10, DeHaro P11, Young P12, Merkel P13, Bahena P14, Veldkamp P15, Miller P16, Ewer P17, Fuzzy Vasconcelos P18, Eddy P19, and Karim P20. For the Holy Grail rookie field, it is Labe, Hunt, Mansueto, Fernandez, DeHaro, Bahena, Veldkamp, Ewer, Fuzzy Vasconcelos, Eddy, and Karim. And for the first time, I believe, this season, we have, actually Elizondo was the disruptor there. We almost had a front row lockout with Holy Grail rookie drivers. But Elizondo changed that from happening. So it is Labe on pole. And we will take a short break and be right back for the start of the formation lap. Engines fired and Labe leads us off the line. Elizondo to his left-hand side. The Jaguar of Hunt behind. The Bentley of Wagner behind Elizondo. It's two rookies on the inside with two very seasoned pros on the outside. Labe doing the best that he can to try and build whatever sort of tire temperature. A 50-minute race. Don't know exactly the fuel loads that everyone is running, but it would be a bit of a telltale sign of strategy. There is no required pit stop. In many leagues, a 50-minute race would have a required pit stop in it, and it does get you into the window where a pit stop may be somewhat logical. But the pit stop is not required. Fuzzy Vasconcelos will actually start from the pit lane in the number 23. Up through Stowe, Labbe spinning the rear tires a bit just to try to generate some more warmth, get the tire pressures up to their operating area. And only a slight difference in the liveries between Labbe and Elizondo. And I can tell you right now, it is going to be a bit of a slugfest between these two. Labbe has the inside, but Elizondo, if anyone on the grid could directly challenge the pace of Labbe, it would be Elizondo. Both of them just need to make sure that they have as good of luck tonight as possible. Luck has been a legitimate factor throughout these races, as it always is in motorsport. But if Labbe or Elizondo can get out front early, it should almost guarantee them a good running spot. Field now trying to get the brakes warmed up, as we are about halfway through this formation lap. Again, thank you all for tuning in, and thank you all for watching who will be watching the replay post-race. I hope that this is going to be a good one. It absolutely should be. First of the 50-minute, it's titled an endurance race, but it is really just a 50-minute sprint. No stops required. We'll see who has the fuel to go the whole way, and who can keep the tires in good enough shape to go the whole way. Labbe will assume the right-hand side of the track. Elizondo will take to the left. They line up 2 by 2 behind for the formation lap, as Labbe on pole will lead the field to the green flag, and we'll see if Labbe is still at the front of this field here in 50 minutes time. Out of Woodcut, and the tension is building. Labbe, with Elizondo immediately beside, is about to have pretty much the biggest threat to his dominance that he has had this season. Just needs to make sure no penalties, no mistakes. Green, green, green. The 47 of Miller gets a drive-through penalty for starting infringement. Labbe tries to hold the inside against Elizondo. Elizondo goes a touch wide. Labbe will assume the lead by the time they get to Maggots and Beckett's. The Jaguar of Hunt is immediately behind. Cones getting thrown around as they go single file through Maggots and Beckett's. The 18 of Bahena off at Beckett's. Labbe, with the Aston Martin of Elizondo in tow, will lead the race through Stowe. A little bit further behind, we do have some argy-bargy. Who is that in the Aston Martin? It was not Young that was forced out wide. I don't believe it was Fernandez either. Back on with this battle for the lead. Labbe ahead of Elizondo. And Labbe right now just trying to make it to the start-finish line to officially lead the first lap of this race. Hunt gets it wrong at Abbey, has to abandon the track, and that will drop him down a couple positions coming through the grass, but that's not the time where you want to do it. wanted to re-enter the circuit, but it is just not going to happen there. The 79 of Caligari around the 111 of Karim, possibly involved as well, and now the gap has opened. Wagner in third place leads the pack as the top two have completely pulled away. They are all over each other into Luffield through Brooklands, but it will be Lab A leading the first lap of this race. Elizondo still applying the pressure though. The 67 of Harris in the Jag had a bit of an off track, and I believe will fall down quite a few positions. Was P8, is now much further down the order. Horner and Craters, two long-time TRC veterans, having it out into Maggots and Beckett's. Horner with his typical hazard lights flashing. It is not a warning or a precursor to his driving style. It's just typically something that he does, although flashing hazard lights may every now and then become true to the race. Lave with the fastest lap and is starting to pull away from Elizondo. Just needs to get the nerves down, get through the first couple laps, and then can really start to get into a groove, sit down in a rhythm, and crank the laps out. The problem is Elizondo is probably going to do the same thing immediately behind, and one mistake will put Elizondo right back in the realm of getting the overtake and stealing that lead away. Mansueto still chasing down Wagner. Hunt, who had that incident on lap 1, down to P7. The Jag actually seeming to be a bit better through the tight handling sections, as Mansueto has caught up to the rear of Wagner quite a bit as they came into Village. The 913 of Craters around, and I believe the car may be stalled. I think he's trying to get it started back up. Finally does, throws it in reverse, has a bit of damage on the front of that Jaguar. And Craters has not had a very good time throughout this season so far. Wagner pulling away from the Jag of Mansueto slightly. Fernandez with Jennings up ahead, the 185. Who is that off? That is Mansueto. As Mansueto, I believe, just went off completely on his own and will fall back down the order, down around P13 or 14. Battle here between the two sister Jags of Jennings and Hunt. Hunt, remember, we did see up in P3. Wagner was in P4. Hunt has the pace, just needs to put the laps in and do the work to get past cars up ahead. Jennings trying to defend against Hunt. Hunt is the faster driver though as they come into Vale. I believe Hunt will try to get the better drive out of the corner. But many sections on this track, you may have the advantage, you may have the speed, but there is nowhere to carry it. You just kind of have to fall back behind and wait for the opportunity to open. Just like the opportunity has opened here, side by side into Village, late and around the outside into the braking zone. Hunt just about gets it done on Jennings and does get it done. Now sets his sights forward onto the 22 Aston Martin of Fernandez. There is the possibility of the get back here as they come down the Wellington Straight into Brooklands. Same car, but one has the slipstream. The car behind is faster, but Hunt in the 888 was able to get the move closed off and will not lose the position. Again, just needs to try and focus on getting that pace, getting away from Jennings behind, and moving up closer to the 22 Aston Martin of Fernandez for P4. Battle here between Young and Merkel. Horner into the pit lane. I believe Horner possibly had some damage. Unsure of exactly why he went into the pit lane. Maybe putting some fresh tires on got them into a more comfortable window. Side by side between the Aston Martins of Merkel and Young into Maggots and Beckett's. There's really only one line through there, but they seem to have found two. Now out of campus onto the hangar straight. Is that going to bring the 18 of Bahena into this battle? And will it bring the Jag of Mansueto back into it as well? They continue side by side nearly into Stowe. Young desperately wants to hold on to this position, and at the time being he has gotten it, but the more of these two battle, the closer and closer the 18 of Bahena, the third Aston Martin, is going to get into this fight. The margin between Hunt and Jennings was a little bit further, but now Hunt fully pressing the issue onto Fernandez in the Aston Martin. These two rookie drivers new to TRC, or at least new to this series, and just about everyone new to the cars, as we do run a bit of a different car grid compared to the rest of the leagues. This is going to be a bit more of a retro grid using the older Jaguar, the older Aston Martin, and the older Bentley. These cars are fairly balanced amongst themselves, but they're typically not the regular choice that you would go for, unless you're Labbe, of course, and Labbe uses the old V12 Aston as his main car, and he very respectively has shown that he is indeed a master of that machine. But a lot of the drivers having to learn the nuances of their different machines that they are driving throughout the duration of this season. Bit of a four-car pack starting to develop, headed by Young. Bahena has gotten past Merkel, and Merkel now possibly under attack from Mansueto as well. These four all within slipstream of each other. Those three Aston Martins, V12s at full song down the hangar straight. Absolutely awesome sound. Bahena a bit wide at Stowe. Will that open the opportunity for Merkel behind? Is that actually going to open the opportunity for Mansueto into the chicane? Almost three wide, but Merkel gets caught up, gets it all wrong, and trying to re-enter the circuit, almost sent it around again. Managed to hold on to it. That is going to drop Merkel out of that fight. DeHaro in P11 also sneaking into the rear here. 79 of Caligari into the pit lane. Don't know if he's got any damage on that Bentley or not. Young, Bahena, and Mansueto, and DeHaro, who has closed up the gap a bit, is in a no man's land of his own behind this group of three. And Bahena goes too deep into Brooklands and will concede the position to Mansueto in the Jag, who is now going to be working on applying pressure to Young. Fernandez with Hunt. Started P3, fell down to around P6 or 7. Has clawed his way back through the field and is looking to get this fourth place position away from Fernandez. Down the straight and in the slipstream. Hunt will be well into the slipstream. I don't know if he has enough of a speed advantage to get the move done into Stowe. I don't think so. But the pressure is there, and just a bit of pressure applied at Stowe is all it takes to open the door up as they get into Vale, but that pressure not going to be opening any doors this time by. Out of Vale, if you can catch the car out, maybe having a bit of a stumble through just like that. Too much of the sausage curb up the inside at Club, and that will allow Mansueto, or sorry, not Mansueto, Hunt. They are just in very similar looking cars, as is the majority of the grid, but will allow Hunt in the Jag to move up into P4, knocking the Aston Martin of Fernandez down to P5. It's all Labe at the front. Again, just needs to keep everything nice and tidy, and should be no issue for Labe to run away with this race win, but also just needs everything to go his way. No disruptions, no mistakes, no penalties, and Labe should have no issue. Pulling away from the field. Has already opened up a 5-point-second gap to Elizondo, and that is a feat in and of its own. Wagner now 8.4 seconds back, but Hunt has plenty of time as long as he can break free of the Aston Martin behind, which I believe he is working on pretty well. But Hunt may be looking at an opportunity to take the position away from Wagner. That gap is actually dropping quite quickly, and Hunt may be looking to get back onto the podium. Wagner either made a mistake or just does not have the pace in the Bentley compared to the rest of the field. I personally thought the Bentley would be very good here at Silverstone. It seems to be that that is not the case. Hunt in the Jag, which Hunt did out-qualify Wagner. But Hunt is closing up that gap quickly. Was 2.5, goes to 2.6, but the gap is holding and has definitely grown the gap to the Aston Martin of Fernandez behind. Bahena, I believe, just got past the Aston Martin of Young. They have been locked in this battle for quite some time, and I believe this battle may not end for quite some time. DeHaro and Mansueto running in each other's slipstream. Just up ahead, Bahena and Young. Young almost had the door open at the inside at left field. Wasn't able to find any room for the move to work, but now Bahena having to think about breaking the toe, breaking the slipstream down the old pit straight. As they come through Copse to Maggots and Beckett's. The two Jags of DeHaro and Mansueto behind, just lurking, waiting to pick up the pieces should something happen between these two. Young just trying to stay within the slipstream range of Bahena, is well within it. Same thing with the two Jaguars behind DeHaro and Mansueto, and the Aston Martin of Merkel. Should these two little duets continue to fight, that would allow Merkel to close right back into the fold as well. Mansueto goes up the inside of DeHaro at Vale. Gets that move done. We'll see if it sticks, though. It's very possible that DeHaro has the opportunity to take that position back. Any small mistake through Abbey, which there is none this time by. Bahena and Young just up ahead. The 913 of Craters, who again has just had some issues throughout this season. Typically very, very quick, but just does not have the pace, at least so far this season. Had a bit of an off at the exit of Aintree. No pit lane entry, so obviously not that bad, but a bit of damage on the front end of that Jag. Young rocking the hazards similar to Horner. Hunt still trying to hunt down the Bentley of Wagner. The gap is holding, sort of. It is beginning to drop now, just a couple tenths of a second. Bahena and Young continuing their fight. Mansueto and DeHaro continuing theirs as well. Merkel just creeping into the picture. We may see these 5 cars all sort of culminate into one big 5-car pack, similar to the 4-car pack that we saw earlier. Harris and Veldkamp. Veldkamp looking to find a way past the 67 of Harris. Harris with a bit of damage on that Jag. I don't think I really see much on the Aston. And we've got a large pack of cars here. Can't really see them too well. But it seemed like the arena section was absolutely full of cars. You have the 59 of Jennings, who is possibly losing time a bit. You have the 913 of Craters, who is lapped. And then you have the group from Bahena, Young, and back, all the way back to Merkel, as the deltas between the 5 of them are starting to drop a bit. Merkel now just getting within slipstream range of DeHaro. DeHaro within slipstream range of Mansueto. Mansueto almost within slipstream range of Young, and Bahena having a bit of a wiggle into Beckett's is going to bunch this group up completely. What gap there was has now completely dissolved, and we've got a 3-car group fighting here for P7, and they're also all chasing down the number 59 Jag of Jennings up in P6. Mansueto wanted to have the eye into Vale. Not able to get the move done, but 3 cars all in this group. DeHaro and Merkel will try and get in as well. Merkel well into the slipstream of DeHaro. Just up ahead, Mansueto with a late braking move wants to get the overtake into Village. Does he force the issue on Young? Young makes no mistake, but the pressure is being applied. And it is once again Bahena ahead of Young, ahead of Mansueto. And DeHaro and Merkel well into that slipstream now. Things are getting a bit rough. Bahena, very, very late on the brakes, is going to concede the position. Does re-enter the course, or tries to re-enter. It's a very, very slow re-entry for Bahena. It's Young ahead of Mansueto, ahead of DeHaro, ahead of Merkel. Now ahead of Bahena, and they have caught right up to the 59 of Jennings now as well. Things are getting a bit tight. We've got 6 cars that are about to all be fighting for position. Jennings gets it wrong into Maggots, and Beckett somehow manages to hold on to it. That is going to evaporate whatever margin he had left. Young with Mansueto essentially pushing him through the S-curves. Will Mansueto look for the move at Stowe? Mansueto hard charging, tried to look for it, tries to get Young to concede, get off the racing line. That will push him off and slower around the outside. Mansueto wants it into Vale, but it is not going to materialize. Mansueto will just have to continue to put his foot on the pedal, mash it down to the floor, and push as hard as possible. Is trying to get the 223 Aston Martin of Young to crack in some way, shape, or form, but it is just not happening. Another late braking move. Mansueto wants to send it. Is it going to be the old switcheroo from Young? Yes, it is. Too little, too late, but does Mansueto have it lined up side by side, door to door, through the loop as they come out of Aintree, still door to door. Neither driver gets the advantage. Mansueto almost had it, but threading the needle. Merkel wants to go through. Merkel does go through. Gets the double overtake by the time they get down into Brooklands. And a bit of a disagreement. Mansueto trying again to get it done, but no. Merkel, the big mover, goes from P9 all the way up to P7, threading the needle between the two. We'll see if Merkel will be able to hold on to it. Mansueto and Young will continue their fight. Merkel just sliced and diced his way through, and Mansueto gets into the rear of Young. Mansueto gets off the throttle, though. Manages to get back in front of DeHaro. And Young, with a touch of damage, will have to try and close back up to the group. I don't think that that was the necessary result that is necessarily the result that Mansueto was looking for. Has lost both of those drivers, actually all of those drivers, a good bit of time. And it has allowed for Merkel to just pull away ahead. Well, now Merkel pretty much uncontested will be able to challenge the 59 of Jennings for P6. And Hunt on Wagner has taken a second out as we are just at the halfway point of this race. Hunt sees the prize. Second place is probably out of the picture. A little too far gone. And Elizondo holding the gap to Labbe has actually closed the time up a bit. We'll see if Labbe maybe does not have enough tires or have as much of tire life left at the end of this race as Elizondo. But Wagner and Hunt. Hunt has the time, has just been whittling away at it, and soon the overtaking opportunity will come. Merkel gets a great run out of Woodcott. They'll be side by side at Copse. Merkel goes around up the inside, now has the outside, which gives him the inside into Maggots and Beckett's. Jennings almost had the cutback, but it just was not enough. Did not work. And Merkel is up ahead, solidly up ahead, and he will try to pull away from Jennings, but Jennings right there in tow is not going to really let it happen. Does Jennings go for the revenge move at Stowe? Jennings tries to get the better run as they come into Vale. It would have to be a late braking move from Jennings. It's not going to happen, but traffic here may be a bit of a hindrance to Merkel, which would help Jennings quite a lot. That's right now, I think Merkel go around Eddie up into Abbey. Merkel forced off the racing line. That will give Jennings the better run, the faster run as they come into Village. It's not enough though, but Jennings still right there within slipstream range. Does open up the possibility for the move to get the position back at the end of the straight by the time they get into Brooklands. Not going to be close enough. Caligari also yielding to the 185 of Mansueto and the 43 of DeHaro. Young, who was involved in that incident earlier, not too far behind this pack. And if they continue to battle up ahead, it's very possible that Young is able to get a few of those positions back. Wagner and Hunt. Hunt was 3/10. The gap now drops back down to 7/10. 3/4 of a second. The 111 of Karim gets our first racing time penalty, a drive-through penalty for track limits. Thank you for the compliment, Ken. I greatly appreciate it. Hunt, who has done the work to close up the gap, now has the final stretch, which is making the move, getting it done. As the great Murray Walker has always said, or did always say, catching is one thing, passing is another. We'll see what Hunt has in the bag when it comes to passing. Because Wagner, longtime veteran of TRC, has won many races with TRC. Very, very quick, is not going to concede this position lying down. It is going to be an absolute tough job for Hunt to get this overtake done. Jennings and Mansueto continuing their fight. I believe Mansueto has actually just overtaken Jennings. No. Mansueto and DeHaro still doing battle behind. And Merkel, who had to avoid the 913 of Craters, may have lost some time there. But it's Merkel, Jennings, Mansueto, DeHaro. The gap is, or the group is still large, 4 cars deep, fighting for what is now P6. The 913 of Craters is a bit of a wrench in the works there. And Jennings went off wide. Mansueto fighting for this, trying to gain whatever he can, gets a drive-through penalty for track limits, and that is going to take him right out of this pack and pretty much right to the back of the field. Has a couple laps to serve that penalty. But whether you do it now or you do it then, it is not going to help your race whatsoever. He can try and gain whatever track position that he can, as Jennings actually went up the inside of DeHaro at Stowe. He can try and pull away and gain whatever time he can, but whatever time he gains, he will lose it, and then about 10 times as much. Hunt and Wagner continuing this fight. This is the fight for P3. 20 minutes left in this race of a 50-minute sprint. We are starting to get into the tire fall-off window. Cars will have a lot less fuel, though. But everybody front engine, rear wheel drive should be at least somewhat similar on tire wear. Now there are different weights, different lengths, different factors into how each car would handle that tire wear. I'm not an expert on how these older cars fare with tire wear, but they probably don't dive as deep into Copse and Stowe as they did on lap 1. They probably don't get on the power as nice and early out of the loop and out of left field as they did on lap 1 either. The tires are starting to be worn and the cars have a lot less fuel, so they get lighter and a bit more free. But Wagner, seemingly through sector 1, as long as he can survive 2 Copse, has no issue pulling away from the Jaguar of Hunt. Yeah, Aston Martin of Fernandez absolutely on his own. The 185 of Mansueto clears the drive-through penalty. I don't think that he will lose a lap, but he is going to be down the order a good ways. Jennings and DeHaro now in this battle for P7. Bahena behind also wants a piece of it. Side by side into the Vale chicane. They nearly make contact, but they don't. Jennings tried to keep a bumper on the rear quarter panel of DeHaro, but it did not work. Didn't get enough speed out of the chicane. And it's DeHaro ahead of Jennings, ahead of Bahena. Merkel has pulled away into the distance. Jennings gets 2 tires in the dirt there, and I don't think the Jaguar really liked that too much. Bahena now finds a bit of an advantage. Closes right up onto the rear of the 59 of Jennings. The fight for P3 continues, and Hunt, just sitting behind, has not really been able to find a way around Wagner. The gap sits just under half a second as they cross the start-finish line. But by the time they get to the Sector 2 timing line, Wagner typically pulls away. Gap 0.423. The gap actually holds this time. Has Hunt found something out? He hasn't lost the time through Sector 1 that he was losing before. And now coming into Vale, Hunt able to apply a bit more pressure, can maybe get Wagner to go more defensive, get off of the racing line, which will give Hunt an advantage in corner exit speed, corner exit momentum. Just needs to try and get into Wagner's head a little bit and use the strengths of his car. Wagner parking it up the middle into Village, but as they come through the loop, Hunt is right on the rear of the Bentley. Will actually go on board looking behind. The Jag in the slipstream. We'll see if he's able to close in. The Wellington straight, not the longest straight in the world, and the Jag gets right up behind, but a little too late on the brakes. That will open up the gap slightly, but through left field, the Jag closes up. It's nice and tidy. But as they come across the line, the gap a tiny bit smaller, but ultimately right around where it was just a lap prior, and right around where it was 2 laps prior. DeHaro and Bahena now as Jennings has fallen behind. DeHaro in the Jag will try and outrun Bahena in the Aston. And what has happened to Hunt? I believe we have lost Hunt. Extremely unfortunate for Hunt, but I believe we have had a technical difficulty from the 888 driver. And Wagner has just dodged a bullet as his competition has essentially just been vaporized. About 15 minutes left in this race. And door-to-door contact between Bahena and DeHaro. DeHaro was around the outside. I think Bahena may have been a little bit later on the brakes, a little bit more free on the steering wheel, and went into the door of DeHaro. But DeHaro gets a much better exit of Vale and may have an opportunity to get this spot back By the time they come through Abbey, not looking like it right now. Yeah, Hunt, we were watching that battle, watching you come through, and you had caught up right to the rear of Wagner, and very unfortunate that happened. I was looking forward to you making that overtake. DeHaro and Bahena banging doors left and right. Jennings now right back into this group. Through left field, Bahena ahead. DeHaro, who's got a few battle scars now, is probably a little bit more motivated to get this position taken back from Bahena. The field has been promoted a spot as Hunt has been disconnected, very unfortunately. And checking back in on Labe, it's all clean and quiet for the race leader. Just now catching up to the 289 Bentley of Ewer, who is running in P15. Sadly is just your luck, Hunt. But there's always next week. Bahena, DeHaro, and Jennings into Vale. They will just continue running 1, 2, and 3. .915 of Horner actually having a disconnection as well, very unfortunately. Bahena, DeHaro, Jennings, Young, I don't think will be able to get close enough to get back into this group. Bahena having a big wobble out of Aintree onto the Wellington Straight. DeHaro late braking and trying to maybe get the cut back, the switcheroo by the time they get to Luffield, but no, it's not going to be. Maybe has a better run. Bahena and DeHaro have been a little bit rough on each other, and Bahena not showing the battle scars anywhere near as much as DeHaro. Yeah, I've been seeing G-Portal server issues happening more and more. And again, I'm very sorry for your disconnection, but sadly there's not really much we can do about it. I was really hoping to see you get up into the third spot there, but at least you gave us a good show while you were here in the session with us. That is all that I can ask for. Bahena ahead of DeHaro, Jennings still in this group. The podium, pretty much the top 5 all decided here for P6 though. This is the 3-way fight, as we have about 10 minutes left in this session. Bahena, DeHaro, and Jennings have not been able to really run on their own whatsoever. They've always had a few competitors just kind of hanging around. DeHaro definitely wants to get this position away from Bahena. As they come through the loop, a bit of a touch between the two. DeHaro wants up the inside, forces Bahena wide, doesn't really force him, but Bahena kind of ran out of road a bit. They are side by side into Brooklands. DeHaro wants to be later on the brakes, goes up the inside, locks the move into Luffield. But if the Aston Martin can maybe get a better run out, which the Aston Martin will not. But very possible that the Aston Martin will maybe rotate a bit more than the Jag and get that position back. But now it is on to Daharo to hold on to it. No mistakes. As Bahena goes wide at Copps, that is not something that you want to do too much. Sticks to the inside to hold off the 59 of Jennings from maybe getting any ideas and looking for a position. And down at the hangar straight, about 4 laps left to go in this race. As Labe, who has caught up to lap traffic around the 79 of Caligari. Actually, I believe he's up to 289 of Ewer, who is a couple laps down as well. This late in the race, 50-minute endurance sprint. A bit long for a sprint. The tires certainly will be showing their age by the time you get to this point. And it is just dominance from Labe, who is going to score big points in both the overall championship and the Holy Grail championship, as long as he can just bring it to the end. No real issues. Has a large gap to the Aston Martin of Elizondo, and a large gap going back from Elizondo to Wagner. About 15 seconds both ways for Elizondo, 15 seconds to Labe, and 15 seconds to Wagner. Daharo has opened up the gap slightly, and Jennings will now start to press the issue. What has happened here? I see cars off. I believe it may have been the 915 of Horner getting out of the way of the 289 of Ewer, possibly. The 23 of Fuzzy Vasconcelos getting a yellow flag there for just a moment. And a bit of damage on Fuzzy's Bentley there. Miller has actually gone up a position into P12. It is back a good ways behind Veldkamp in P11. '97 of Merkel has pulled off well into the comfort zone of P5. Daharo and Bahena still fighting for P6 and 7. Jennings is also still there should he be invited to the party. Daharo and Bahena have definitely had the elbows out for these two positions. Is this a battle between the 913 of Craters? No, it is not. I believe that's the 915 of Horner. Yes, it is, but Horner's still going to race him with everything that he's got. Ken, you should see my Discord pop up, but I can actually just DM you. I have my own Discord server. I can actually post the link to it real quick. And you can join there and get in contact with me. So you can join my Discord there, and then we can talk about what you have going on in the future. So yeah, if you can just find me on there, shoot me a message, and we can get stuff talked about. Daharo goes around, seemingly all on his own, and Bahena will be promoted. Jennings gets a great run out of Aintree and maybe gets 2 positions out of it. Jennings with a drag race on the brakes. And into Brooklands and Luffield. Jennings gets it done, locks in the position ahead of Daharo. And just when Jennings, in my eyes, was just kind of getting counted out of that fight, gets right back into it. Yeah, that's fine, Ken. Just send me a message and we can talk about stuff. No guarantees, as I try to keep the schedule pretty tight and restricted, as the lady in charge only lets me do so much. Jennings actually having a bit of a bobble through campus. And that is going to bring Bahena right back into it. It seemed that Jennings was just going to pull away, and Bahena wants to take it back into the Vale chicane. Sends it a bit deeper. Does Jennings try and keep a nose around the outside? Does, but it's not going to do much for him. And Bahena back up into 6th position. Jennings gets a great run out of Abbey, though, and as they come into Village, things are starting to heat up between these two. Not much time left to go in this race, as the leader is now just on the final lap. These two will get one more lap to go, though. So it's everything they've got to fight for one more lap. Mansueto has caught up to Young as well. This could be a fight for P9. But it has all been about Labe. We'll go back on with this fight. Bahena and Jennings. Bahena locks it up ahead. It looked like they were door to door down the hangar straight. The 223 of Young with Mansueto in tow. They will cross and come on through. The race is officially over. The clock has hit 0. And Labe, in dominant fashion, says that he's a master of the V12 Aston, and if anything has confirmed it today. Labe takes the victory here at Silverstone, round 3 of the Posh British GT3 series, with both the win overall and the win in the Holy Grail. Elizondo will take home P2, and Wagner will take home P3. But the racing is not done yet. Bahena and Jennings, one behind the other. Mansueto and Young, that fight is not over yet either. Jennings sends it late into the braking zone for Village, sets up nice and wide, wants to get a better run, more momentum around the outside, but 2 tires in the grass is going to make that a bit harder. Now it may come down to a late braking move into Brooklands. Fernandez crosses the line P4. Merkel brings home P5, or will just bring home P5. And trying to get as much speed into the corner as possible. It's a drag race to the line, but I believe Bahena will get it. It will be Bahena P6, Jennings P7, DeHaro P8, Young. With Mansueto right behind, it will be Young P9, Mansueto P10. Veldkamp will cross the line at P11. But it is all about Labe, all Aston Martin at the front. One Bentley on the podium, that is Wagner. But we get some good sportsmanship between these two. The two dominant forces in this league, but as of right now, Labe finishing with a 20-second gap to Elizondo. An absolute show of dominance today for the rookie driver. Labe P1, Elizondo P2, Wagner P3. That's your overall podium. And Labe P1, Fernandez P2, Bahena P3. That's your Holy Grail podium. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Thank you all for those of you who have hit that follow button. If you haven't, I'd greatly appreciate it. And thank you all to those of you who follow or to subscribe to the Twitch Prime or just a regular Twitch subscription. And thank you all to those watching on YouTube and who are subscribed to the YouTube channel. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you all, and I will see you all next week for round 4 of this series. Thank you all, and have a good night.